So happy to be here. My name's Madelin Reyes. I am the multimedia coordinator of communications at the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, and I'm also an artist and now business owner of Kelp Art.
Maddie, have you always known that you wanted to work in marine conservation or create kelp art, or what was the path like getting there?
Yeah, it's always a fun question. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a marine biologist. Like, I feel like a lot of people come up to me and say when they were little kids, they wanted to be a marine biologist, but I was totally one of those little kids who just loved going to the beach and going like tide pooling and stuff. And I went like snorkeling for the first time and I saw a squid and it was super iridescent. I was 7. I don't know why I can remember this super clearly, but anyway, in that moment, I was just like, yeah, I want to be like a marine biologist. I didn't even fully know the scope of what that meant going into it, but I was pretty determined from a young age. And then, yeah, I just always kind of like science. So it just kind of worked out. But it wasn't until grad school that I started learning about kelp and seaweed. So I took a class called phycology, which is the study of marine plants. And then my teacher ended up becoming my advisor when I got my master's, and just her love of seaweed and like her mentor's love of seaweed definitely just like rubbed off on me. And that's when I first learned how to make art, was in grad school at Scripps Oceanography. So
Your work at the foundation primarily focuses on protecting marine ecosystems while your art is celebrating their beauty. So, how do those two roles inform or inspire each other?
yeah, that's a great question. So, I was doing research, I was doing science at Scripps Oceanography, studying kelp forests. I think, you just start out wanting to study it because you really like it, and then you sort of like start to learn more about kind of climate change and things that are happening to our ocean ecosystems. And so it kind of just is a natural path as a marine biologist to start working in ocean conservation. And I kind of started looking at it more from a positive lens. Just like it's a really interesting natural experiment, and I just wanted to kind of focus on like the positive things. And I found like beauty and just like the way things look like aesthetically and also like for our mental health. Like we love looking at the ocean and coral reefs and kelp forests and stuff. It's just like a human connection that we have to like being in nature. It's like kind of going on a hike, but kind of being in the water. So I wanted to lean into that. And then actually COVID happened. And then I got an internship at NOAA Ocean Exploration to do science communication. So that's kind of this whole other sector of ocean conservation and ocean research where it's people who communicate what the scientists are doing, because scientists are really busy doing the research and then publishing papers, and they don't really it's not really in their job description and just like their time to like further express it to the public. And just I found that kind of just within COVID, like video, photo, social media stuff was blowing up. So I was like, this would be a great way to do science communication. And that just kind of led to my role at the Marine Sanctuary Foundation. I started a video series talking about like the deep sea and stuff and interviewing scientists and using footage to make videos. And I loved like making art already and doing photography. So yeah, it just kind of ended up happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that same vein, when you're doing the content for, National Marine Sanctuary, are there any current projects that are coming up that you're excited about or that are going to be informing some of your new pieces?
Yeah, that's a great question. We got a large grant this like in 2004 to do large marine debris removal in the marine sanctuaries. And so marine sanctuaries are really large marine protected areas in America. So that's like the Channel Islands in California, some of the Great Lakes. That's like the Florida Keys and Humpback Whale Marine Sanctuary in Hawaii. So those are our really like big marine protected areas, Monterey Bay. And we got a grant to do large marine debris removal. And so I helped do and film some marine debris removal in the Channel Islands, and then also got to do some underwater footage and video recording in Washington, which was really cool. I'd never been there.
Love
where
Washington.
it's so beautiful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't, I definitely want to go back again this summer. And it was just really, really cool to get to do that. And I think I just got really inspired by some of the like moodier water up in Washington, actually. They have really great seaweed. They have really amazing coastlines. And I'm doing this market called the Mermaid Market, which is super cute. So I'm gonna really lean into that and do some moodier ocean stuff, do some
What's
mermaid.
the mermaid market?
It's a local market in Dana Point, where I live here in Orange County in California. And it's a maker's market, so like crafts and art and stuff. I didn't really realize how many in-person events there really are for like makers and artists and stuff. So I've never really thought I'd be like super into doing in-person events, but now they've kind of been dictating like when and what kind of I like to make collections with my art. So I think in terms of my work, that time in Washington really inspired like some stuff I have coming up. And then it's also just really inspired me to think more about how I can kind of make like do storytelling, I guess, because that's a big thing I've been learning in my job is like how can we tell a story through the projects and the science we're doing in the marine sanctuaries. And I'm like, okay, so how can I use my art to tell a story? So that's kind of the my latest like challenges and projects.
Yeah, two things I thought about when you mentioned the debris removal. I mean, I did read about that grant, which is awesome that you guys are doing that. I feel like debris removal is a consistent issue that
Yeah.
continues to arise. So when you guys are doing debris removal, do you guys put things in place to help prevent
Yeah.
that, or is any of the debris going to be showing up in your art pieces? Are you going to like
I
recycle some
really
of it?
want to. I really want to. I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
So there's an artist I really look up to who he makes like a lot of art, mostly using like fishing rope and things like that. I'm totally blanking on his name, but I might just send it to you. It's so cool. But I really want to do something like that with marine debris because I think it's something too that's like tangible for us to understand because sometimes you hear like warming and climate change and it's just like this very like doom and gloom type of thing that we can't really control. But I feel like anyone like who's done like a beach cleanup or just like has helped pick up trash after an event, like you're kind of like, whoa, this is a lot of single-use plastic. Like this is like,
Yeah.
and I think when you do it in places that are super beautiful and super like the Channel Islands are very like there's no one on a lot of the islands there. So it's all just trash that comes from the ocean. So you're kind of like, oh, okay, this stuff just lasts too. So I think it'd be
Right.
like a cool way to do it. I'm trying to figure out, um, the best way to do it. But I am trying to do more marine biology stuff where I explain like the science behind the seaweed. So it's kind of botany-esque, like
Mm.
the study of plants and flowers, but for seaweed. So just kind of stuff like some nerdier stuff like that that is really fun for me.
Well, is
And
there a favorite type of seaweed that you like working with?
yeah, definitely giant kelp. I kind of have a whole collection of giant kelp that I'm trying to keep together as one piece, and I'll probably make another one. And I'm making a larger commission actually with the giant kelp. But giant kelp is what makes our giant kelp forests. So it's really like our ecosystem in California, like tropical places have coral reefs. There's rocky reefs and then there's like freshwater, ecosystems too. But for California and the Pacific coast, our kelp forests are like our, backyard
So does it
ecosystem.
act as like a filter, a source of food, a habitat, kind of
Yeah,
everything?
it's a habitat. So that's something that really makes me passionate is studying stuff that makes habitat. So before kelp, I studied coral reefs. And yeah, I think that'd be a great thing to sort of story tell about is how it makes habitat because sometimes I take for granted that like I just kind of spend time in it and know it's a habitat and stuff like that. But I think once you kind of understand just how special and unique it is, like there's not that many things that can grow that big and so like, have that kind of support for animals. It's kind of like if you think about a forest on land. We do have
Mm,
a lot of different types of trees, but in the ocean, it's like giant kelp's really one of the only ones that can grow all the way from the bottom, like 100 feet to the very top. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, it can even
yeah.
grow like a foot a day. It's very
Or
it's a
are
very
they
special
currently at
species.
risk of not being preserved properly, or are there things that we can
Yeah,
do to kind of
especially
offset
here
that?
in Southern California, there's a
Mm,
few different conservation issues with giant kelp, and I'm definitely very in touch with like the ones on the Pacific coast, but in Australia, they're also facing similar issues, but just to just to clarify. But anyway, in San Diego, like a lot of the kelp has been missing, like places where there's been kelp
mm,
forever. So that's kind of what I studied for my master's. That one's a little tough to like see that happen. But basically what happens is the warmer water, it has less nutrients. So when we think about like California water, it's not super clear and tropical, and that's because there's nutrients in it. So just because like water isn't clear,
huh.
it's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's kind of why what makes like, tropical, like let's say Florida, they have a very tropical clear water sort of system going on. Whereas we have upwelling, which brings like deep water that's full of nutrients to the top. And that's why we have such a productive like kelp forest, and that's what allows kelp forest to grow. But when we get a ton of warm water from the south and just in general ocean warming, it displaces that nutrient-rich cold water. So what's going
Are
on is
there,
it's
yeah.
making just conditions not as good for kelp to grow.
Well, is there anything conservationists can even do to offset that? Or,
Yeah, that's like a huge research area. There's been a lot of success with just without planting, and we're trying to learn like genetically some kelp, like some, they're all the same species, giant kelp. It's called Macrocystis porifera. But like some ecotypes or some that are from certain areas, like there is kelp that grows even further south in Baja. They're a little bit stronger and more like able to handle the heat. So we're looking into genetics, like my lab, I say. Um, Not that I do research with that lab anymore, but I do help them and they're my colleagues and friends. But they are researching like what genotypes, like what types of kelp we can grow in the lab, and then out plant them to the kelp forests that used to be there. And also just surveying for like which ones are the best to outplant at. And there has been shown to be success with that for sure. So
okay.
it's kind of one of those things that's like you can't obviously control what the nutrient and temperature conditions are going to be for the kelp, but um, there is a lot of hope for this like kelp outplanting and just in general too. It's been shown that like when we protect that, make the marine protected areas, just the bioactivity of fish too, and like having a healthy ecosystem around them helps them grow too. So yeah.
So is that kind of what drew you to seaweed as material? Is just it's like the major thing that's maintaining habitats, or there's just so
Yeah,
much more to it than people don't know about?
yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of like one of those things that doesn't have like a voice or, it's not as represented. And I was always drawn to that in marine biology. Like I wasn't that interested in studying like dolphins and whales, which are amazing and I love them so much, but I was super interested in these things that kind of like made the like habitats that I like to go dive in. And they kind of, like they're the things that you see every day when you're at the tide pools or snorkeling or scuba diving, in California locally or that I grew up with and I like to go
Yeah.
look at. They're just so beautiful. Like when the light comes through a giant kelp forest, it's super magical. And so I was just interested in that. I've always liked to know what types of plants I'm looking at when I'm on a hike and stuff. And it's a pretty similar vibe, I think, as someone who's super into botany or flowers and stuff, which I also love.
Well, you kind of tapped into that earlier too, but along that same line, what message do you hope that your art is sharing?
I hope that my art is sharing this there's this like unsung beauty of the ocean that I think can like benefit people as well. Like I think my pieces are really calming I think it really gets people in touch, like with that vibe of being in the ocean, because it's a very hard to replicate. It's almost like psychedelic. It's hard to maybe find another word, but it's not really, it's like alien-esque too, a little bit. And I think just that environment of fully getting yourself out of, the daily life, like that's how I feel when I go underwater in the ocean or even just look out at the horizon, is it kind of takes you out of your mental state. And there's this phrase coined by Dr. Wallace. It's called blue mind theory. He published a
Mhm.
book. It's called Blue Mind Theory. It's about the meditative, calming state of the ocean and how, as humans, just like being around water, really helps our mental health. So that's a big message I want to share. Um, and then the other being that these places provide a service to us just by being beautiful, let alone all the other things they do. And I think maybe I'm hoping that story also touches people to want to learn about them and protect them and stuff.
Well, I think calming and psychedelic is a perfect way to describe your
Yeah.
art. So what even is the process of how you make these pieces for folks that
Yeah.
don't?
Yeah. So cyanotypes are actually the first type of photograph that humans ever invented. And it's made with two iron oxide salts. And um, when they combine, they create a like photosensitive material, meaning it's sensitive to light. And when put on something like I use fine art paper, watercolor paper, um, they're able to imprint an image on the sun. It's called a photogram. But basically what's happening is the sun is making an image of like the shadow of whatever you have on it. And then creating an image. It's really cool that people invented this like in the 1800s, like 1840 or something. And so yeah, technically first photograph ever taken. And then the first female photographer, Anna Atkins, she started doing this material to document like ferns and plants. So it's cool. It's like a rich history of women who use these types of processes to like make art and document um, like natural history of botanicals. Uh,
Is this a common practice that's still used, or are you kind of like one of the only left that's
it's
doing it?
it's definitely not common. Like it's no secret. A lot of people do it as kind of like a fun thing. Like when you're a kid, I've like for the most part, like people who do know about it. I think the people who study ferns and botany and seaweed, because also one of the famous female seaweed scientists started using this method to document seaweed. Like I think that's like a niche group of people who know about it for botanical uses. Like I call it botanical art. People use it with flowers. But for photographs, it's considered, I also like to do photography and film photography. It's considered this alternative processing. So what I love about it is that it's all natural and non-toxic. Compared to developing film, it's a much nicer process to work with. So I do have like I get my negatives enlarged of my film and I'm able to process film that way. So in the photography world, it's kind of considered this alternative method of processing photographs. So I'd say it's a niche thing, but it's people definitely know about it. But I think
Well, I
if you've
think
never
that's
seen it before, it is like really, really like different than anything.
Well, I mean, that also speaks volumes because you, as a conservationist, have found a non toxic way to produce art. So that kind of
Yeah,
also informs your pieces, which is pretty cool.
it's
So
nice.
you're preserving a historical form of how they've done this that it primarily belonged to women in the past, and you're using a non toxic method. So that's pretty incredible,
Yeah,
honestly.
I definitely fell in love with this method. I do like seaweed pressings, which is like flower pressings, and that's kind of the art I'd been creating for the longest. And then one of my colleagues at Scripps Oceanography, I took her workshop on how to make them, and she really encouraged me a lot. And that mentorship and like encouragement definitely um, got me like excited about it because it took me a while, honestly, to get it. like right or like at a point where I was happy with. Just a lot of experimentation basically. And everything that I make is an experiment with the sun ultimately. So it's pretty cool. I really like it.
You live in a pretty prime location for sun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so it was nice. It's
that
definitely
helps.
definitely need it to make stuff. So
Well, what's the,
well,
you talked about this class and kind of you've touched on the journey throughout, but what's the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself on this journey?
I think just talking to people about it, I never thought I've always considered myself an introvert and kind of like had these stories about myself, like not necessarily negative, but just that I couldn't really be the type of person to go and like sell my stuff. Like even if, yeah, I don't know. I just guess that like that never seemed like something I would want to do. But I think just making these things, I got so like into it just for the love of doing it. And I think that just comes out when I meet people. And now I really enjoy meeting people and talking about my art, um, and doing commissions for people, selling my art. And yeah, I think I just really learned that when I really love doing something, it's like it's a good thing to want to share it and not, I don't necessarily have the same insecurities and judgments of myself in terms of making things and like needing it to be perfect and then also sharing it. So yeah, it's been a
Well,
really
watching your launch of this has been so inspiring and transformational for me as well. Just watching your whole process behind it. Um, but if there is any advice that you could give someone who's feeling insecure or unsure or who isn't sure how to find their calling, what would it be?
Yeah, that is such a great question. I definitely like it's so cliche, but like you kind of have to take that first step and just do it. Like even to this day, my website and whatever the launch and everything, it's really not how I would want it to be. But along the way, like I've become better at my art form and I've learned more about doing in-person events and I'm doing some more collaborations. But like I needed to just get over that hump of like having some sort of website to do it, you know? So I think, you know, I've heard that advice all the time and it never really landed with me ever, but it's so true. Like you do have to just take that first step and it's not going to be perfect. But I think if I could give any other advice, I would say like investing in yourself and like a mentor or like a class is something, you know, I always thought I could do everything on my own. And it's just incredible what like even just a small support system can do. Like even if it's just watching YouTube videos and then trying to get feedback from your friends and family, like just being serious about having some sort of teacher or mentor or something, like some sort of structure like that, I think is huge.
It's amazing what and who will come out of the woodworks when put yourself out there and
Yeah, exactly.
are trying things out. It's a good
Yeah.
way to create community for sure.
Yeah.
Um, if people could take away one thing from our conversation today, what would you want them to focus on?
I would want them to just take some time to be like with the water, like if there's a body of water near you. And there's a couple of things, like I mentioned the blue mind theory of how much the water can do for your mental health. There's also this book called The Artist's Way, but it's also a similar vibe of just being creative and letting that creativity flow through you too. And just, yeah, I don't know. I think that there's something about the water that just really inspires me. And I think uh, just would love for other people to be able to tap into that.
Well, you know me, moving away from the ocean was pretty hard for me. So I've been trying to make my way back there. So I completely relate to what it does for mental health. Not that there's anything wrong with the desert or the mountains, but I definitely miss the ocean. So I
Yeah,
can relate to
yeah. It's
that.
crazy what like a shower or a bath, even
Mm-hmm.
like even just touching the water, a pool. Yeah, I think you'd like that book. It's a Blue Mind Theory because he kind of talks about that too. And similarly, like if you're even just like doing watercolor paintings of a whale or an underwater scene or just literally the color blue, like the color blue has been like scientifically shown to like make people calmer. So yeah,
Well, that's definitely helpful, especially for people who don't have direct access to a body of
exactly.
water. So that's
Yeah,
really good advice.
yeah.
Where can people find your work or learn more about the foundation if they wanted to participate?
Yeah, the Marine Sanctuary Foundation could definitely use some love right now in the current administration. Just NOAA, who runs the marine sanctuaries, is facing a lot of budget cuts and things like that. So if you could go to marinesanctuary.org /get dash involved, there's a letter you can sign just encouraging your local um, representatives to support continued funding for NOAA's marine protected areas, for NOAA's marine sanctuaries. And you can also sign up for the Marine Sanctuary newsletter. Um, and for my stuff, it's all at kelpart.com. And my Instagram is at seaweed stuff. And yeah, I try to post a good amount of ocean conservation things and just like opportunities too for people who are interested in working in that space. Anything that kind of comes up that I can share. Yeah.
Awesome, Maddie. Well, thanks for your time today and thanks for sharing all of this. It's really exciting to watch everything that you're doing, and I love how you combined your art with what's going on with NOAA. It's really great to watch your stuff on Instagram. So thank you for doing what you do, and thanks for inspiring other people to get involved. And I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you. You had such great questions, and I really like talking to you. And that was some really good ideas about the marine debris and just tying my art even that much more into what I do.